Hey everybody, welcome back. Obviously, with the wild card round just finished, I'm going to go over the actual predictions for just this week's games for the divisional round. Obviously, we had some upsets, we had some favorites win, and we're going to get right into it. So for the first game I'm going to go over, it's going to be the Bills and the Ravens, right? Did predict that both of the teams would win. Pretty close scores as well. I thought the Ravens would win by a little bit more than they did. They did get down 10-0 early. If you didn't watch the game, it's a really good game to watch. They got down 10-0 early, and then they ended up scoring 17 consecutive points, took a 17-10 lead. Tennessee got a field goal, followed by another Ravens field goal, and that was the final was 20-13. Now, for the actual week's game, wanted to go over some stats for you guys for not only last week, but how I think that's going to maybe transition into this week's game. So in the Colts-Bills matchup, that game, like I said, very close contested game. They were up roughly about 2 scores. Colts got a score late to make it a one-possession game. But had a couple stats I wanted to go over. It was a little interesting, right? We talked about the fact that their defense was kind of middle of the pack, Buffalo's that is. They actually allowed 472 yards total. Rushing-wise, 163 yards on the ground on 30 attempts. The Indianapolis Colts were able to average 5.4 yards a carry. That is a very big number. Did pass the ball pretty well, by throwing for 309 yards, 0 sacks. Buffalo was not able to take Phillip Rivers down. Obviously, the Colts offensive line is one of the best, if not the best in the league. So that's kind of to be expected. Time of possession, which is a big factor in who wins playoff games. The Colts actually had it for 34 minutes on the clock. Compared to Buffalo's 25. But again, like we talked about, Josh Allen is such a good quarterback, and I think he doesn't get enough recognition. He should be in that MVP discussion. He's definitely a top 5 for the MVP. And as a quarterback, he's probably 3rd or 4th on your list after Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers for at least the season that he's had, which is why you're able to really kind of get dominated in a game statistically when you look down the line, but you still win because you just had the better quarterback, right? Rushing the ball, they were not able to rush the ball. They gave it to their running backs a total of 10 times. Josh Allen was actually their leading rusher with 54 rushing yards. I believe it was 54. So again, they're not really able to establish a ground game, but even with only having the ball for 25 minutes, they were able to put up 27 points. And they do it so fast because Josh Allen is just so good. He's able to get them into the right plays, and he's able to make big plays down the field. He's got, one of the strongest arms, if not the strongest in the game. So just to go over Josh Allen's stats as well, he was actually 26 of 35, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He actually had a quarterback rating of 85. And if you don't know, not familiar with QBR, it's a rating of 0 to 100. 100 being like a perfect game. Nobody ever really gets that. So 85 is very good. If you were to finish the season, just for example, at an 85, it would probably be, I believe, the best in history, right? So obviously for a season, it's tougher to do, but just goes to show you like an 85 rating as a quarterback rating is very, very good. And then very quickly, let me get into the Tennessee Titans and the Ravens game as well. Really, when you look at the stats, Baltimore just dominated the game. I know they were down 10-0 early, but after that point, it was all Baltimore. They outgained them 401 yards to 209, so almost 2-1 in yards. The Ravens were 7 for 13 on third downs. They had 236 rushing yards on 35 attempts for 6.7 yards per carry. And the Ravens were able to hold the ball for 33 minutes on the clock. The only really thing I think the Ravens kind of struggled with early was obviously stopping A.J. Brown. I'm really shocked Tennessee didn't go back to him, often. Again, he had 6 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown, and that touchdown was on that second drive after the Lamar Jackson interception. So, for them to not really continue to get him the football was a little I couldn't believe it kind of as you're watching it because the running game obviously wasn't working. Derrick Henry had, let me look at it real quick, he had 18 carries for 40 yards. So he was really able to be neutralized. Like I was saying, my playoff prediction video, the Baltimore Ravens defense is a top unit in the league, let alone their offense is in the top 5 as well. So this is why I kind of picked the Ravens because I think their team is just so good, and they're just a complete team. they're able to kind of win on all phases of the game. And obviously, special teams with Justin Tucker, you have the best kicker in the league as well. He did miss a field goal, so that's not great. So, obviously, a couple keys to the game. The Buffalo Bills were actually 2 for 9 on third down against Indianapolis Colts. So, if you are not converting third downs, if you're Buffalo, and you're able or not able to get first downs, excuse me, if you're not able to get first downs, it's going to be very difficult if you're going to have to punt the ball to Lamar Jackson in that offense. They are going to probably be able to run the ball. Is what I really see in the game. Again, you allowed Indianapolis. Again, granted, they have one of the best offensive lines in the league, but you let them run for 163 yards on 30 carries, whereas Baltimore had 236 rushing yards on 35 carries against Tennessee's defense. And both defenses, Tennessee and Buffalo's, were kind of below average for playoff teams, at least for sure. So I think a very big factor is going to be Josh Allen, of course, right? He's going to have to play the way he played kind of against the Colts. I just think that there's so much pressure on Josh Allen when you look at them as a team, right? Their running game is really, at least in the first playoff game, was nowhere to be found. And even throughout the season, I think they were 20th in rushing. So not a great ground game, right? So at that point, you're kind of putting all the pressure on Josh Allen, which, the reason why they are 13-3 is because Josh Allen has responded the entire year. He's done it all season long, right? And if you're Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, you're just, 2 games away from a Super Bowl and 3 games away from a championship. So, obviously you're going to lean on your best players in the playoffs, and Josh Allen is certainly one of them, and not even the best players in Buffalo, but also the best players in the league. I do think the game obviously is going to come down to is Buffalo able to score early, right? Because with Tennessee taking a 10-0 lead, their offense is not explosive enough to really scare the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson out of his game plan. I think you saw it even on that second possession with Lamar Jackson throwing the interception, right? He gets a little uncomfortable, and when he's a little uncomfortable and he starts feeling the pressure of, having won a playoff game and can he get it done, right? You see some bad throws. And I think when you play an offense like Buffalo's, if they were to go up 2 possessions, it's going to put a tremendous amount of pressure on Lamar Jackson and just that entire offense, which is really not built from coming from behind. I know they did beat Tennessee down 10-0, but after the Tennessee Titans were to take that 10-0 lead, the announcer had said something that I found just odd. He said that the Ravens were the only team all year to not come back from down 10 points in any football game. So if you're going to play a high-powered offense like Buffalo and you get down 2 scores, it could be over pretty early. If Lamar Jackson makes one mistake, you could turn the 10-point lead to a 17, and all of a sudden the game starts to get away from you, kind of like what Buffalo did against Miami in the last game of the season. But for Baltimore, if they're able to consistently run the ball, right, and keep Josh Allen off the field, right, and get some scores. Obviously, when you get in the red zone, you do have to convert them for touchdowns because Buffalo's offense is so explosive. But if you're able to get touchdowns and not just field goals, you're able to put a lot of pressure now on Josh Allen, right, who, again, their ground game is almost non-existent, right? It's like their entire offense is just predicated around Josh Allen, whether it's running or throwing. So if you're able to score some touchdowns and put some pressure on Josh Allen to have to drive the ball on that pretty good Ravens defense, and at that point, if you can create a mistake from Josh Allen, 1 or 2 mistakes, you're maybe able to win the football game on just those miscues alone. With that being said, obviously I'd already had this game picked as my AFC Championship game, right? Obviously the seedings didn't go the way I thought they were going to go. But even in that game, I had predicted that the Ravens would win the game, and I really didn't see anything from the 2 playoff games that made me sway in either direction, right? The Colts offense was able to have a very good game against that Buffalo Bills defense, and I believe that the Ravens are going to be able to put up 30 to 40 points in that game. And again, Josh Allen didn't show me anything that I didn't already know, and I do think that Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are going to put up a lot of points. They are going to put a lot of pressure on the Ravens. I mean, the game could come down to who has the ball last, right? That could be the team that wins the ball game. I think it's going to be very close. Again, I could see both teams going to the Super Bowl and winning it. Like I said, Josh Allen has been that good this year, and I think if he were to pull off the upset, even though they're at home, I do think most people would pick the Ravens as favorites at this point. And if he were to pull off the upset and beat them, I think that teams and just average fans would start giving Josh Allen more credit than he deserves for what he's actually done with the roster that they have and where he's gotten them. So the second game we're going to get into is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Saints, excuse me. And like I had said in the prediction video, right, I had this as being actually the NFC Championship game. So obviously with the seedings not going the way I wanted, right, we're just going to have to talk about it in this week's not the NFC Championship game. So let me get into some stats for you. So for the Bucs football team game, sounds weird every time. It's still the first year. They actually won the ball game 31-23. So Tom Brady, pretty efficient, 22 of 40, 381 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 84 quarterback rating. So very good. They were able to run the football as well, 29 carries, 142 yards, and a touchdown. Now on third down, they were 6 for 14. So about just under 50%. And then they did have 3 sacks, right? So obviously you're going up against that good pass rush. To allow 3 sacks is okay, right? At least they didn't allow 5, 6, 7. That would have been a real problem. But you also didn't allow 0, right? So you did, let Brady get hit a little bit. But obviously, again, Washington's D-line was so good, and we talked about that. You kind of knew it was going to happen. I think I was more disappointed in the Bucs defense, right? To give up 23 points to that young quarterback. Again, he's making his first start, and he looked very good. Also, the football team was 7 of 14 on third down. So as the Bucs defense, you were not able to get off the field, which is why the game was as close as it was. And then the real interesting one was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers actually had 5 red zone trips and got 4 field goals and only 1 touchdown. Their touchdowns were not inside the red zone. And for those of you who don't know, red zone is once you get inside the 20-yard line. They qualify that as the red zone. So when you throw, a 28-yard touchdown and a 31-yard touchdown, it's not technically a red zone possession just because you're on their side of the field. You have to be inside the 20. So that is an area of concern, right? You cannot go up against New Orleans Saints in New Orleans and have 5 possessions in the red zone and get 1 touchdown. That will not win you a football game, right? Whereas the football team had 4 red zone possessions and scored 3 touchdowns. That's kind of what the Bucs are going to have to do this week going up against New Orleans in order to beat them. So very quickly, let me get into the Saints-Bears game. Obviously, not super exciting to watch. His final score was 21-9. You did have the Saints were up 21-3, got a late garbage time touchdown from Jimmy Graham, coincidentally, right? The ex-Saints player. Let me get into it real quick for the stats. Drew Brees was 28 of 39, 265, 2 touchdowns, no picks, but a 57 quarterback rating. So even though he didn't throw a pick, he didn't play as well as he could have, right? Alvin Kamara, 23 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown. But obviously, like we talked about, the Saints defense, very good, right? They were able to just absolutely shut down the Bears offense. They could not move the ball at all. They were 1 for 10 on third down. And they were 1 of 2 in the red zone, the 1 score coming at the very end of the ball game. Whereas the Saints were 11 of 17 on third down. They had 4 red zone possessions, and 3 of them resulted in touchdowns. And then the time of possession was 38 minutes for the New Orleans Saints to 21 minutes and change for the Bears. So they were almost able to hold the ball twice as long as the Bears. Just really wasn't a contest. I mean, obviously in the first half, it was 7-3, and it was a very close ball game. And Mitch Trubisky has that throw where the receiver just drops it, right? Really not on Mitch Trubisky at that point. It's a very good throw. Made a good read, right? The receiver could catch that. It's maybe a different ball game, right? Because now if you're the Saints, it's real tight. At that point, you do have a good Bears defense. You maybe create a turnover, and you're able to maybe sway field position, or maybe just get a pick 6, right, and put some points on the board. So obviously, with this being a rematch, they played each other twice in the regular season. Saints won both games. I do think it's obviously going to be a little different this third time around. Obviously, the Bucs are more comfortable, right? Tom Brady's more comfortable every week. He's getting more comfortable with his receivers, his offensive line, and everything. And over the last couple weeks of the season, he has looked on point. He looks better than ever. And even in the playoff game against Washington, going up against a very good defense to put up 31 points. And all those drives in the second half were all crucial drives, right? The football team would score to make it a 1-possession game, and Brady would go right back down the field, long sustained drives, either get a touchdown or a field goal to extend the lead. I do think, obviously, like I said, the red zone possession, they're going to be key. If the Bucs are to get 4 red zone possessions, you need to get in the end zone. If you kick field goals, it's just going to be insurmountable at that point. I think the Saints are going to get some scores. The Bucs defense, like I said, was not that impressive against the football teams. Hopefully, they have a better showing. And we'll see, but you're going up against a very well-rounded Saints offense as well with Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and Drew Brees, right? So you got weapons there, and you got the quarterback. But again, I still do think that the Tampa Bay Bucs will win. I don't really have a different prediction than what I had when I first made the video. So I still have the Bucs winning. I think the score, I'll pick another one. I think it's going to be probably 35-28 Tampa. So now let's get into the 1 seeds. All right, so first we'll start in the AFC. So we'll do the Chiefs-Browns. So obviously that was the one game that I got wrong. The Browns did win, and then even in my video, the previous video, I did talk about it, how which quarterback do I think will have a better game, Big Ben or Baker Mayfield. I was completely wrong. It was not even really close. Baker far outplayed Big Ben. Big Ben was pretty bad to start the game. He was okay in the third quarter, but at that point, it's almost like garbage time in the third quarter. They were down by so much. Let me quickly get into the stats for you guys. So Big Ben, I mean, when you look at his stats, not too bad. He was 47 of 68, threw it 68 times, 501 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, and a 66 QBR. Obviously, if you watch the game, right, they had so many miscues early in that first quarter. The Browns built a 28-0 lead like 10 minutes into the game. It was kind of crazy to watch. So Baker was pretty good. 21, 34, 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 92 quarterback rating. So the 92 quarterback rating was actually the highest of any of the playoff teams' quarterbacks. So he did play very well. I think the kind of game that it was where, the Steelers fumble the opening possession for a touchdown, and then Big Ben throws a pick, and, they converted into a touchdown, and then a punt, and another touchdown, and then another pick, and another touchdown. It was like the avalanche was so quick that I think the rest of the game, Baker just had to really kind of just maintain and just kind of like game manage, right, for them. Obviously, running the ball, 31 carries for Cleveland, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pittsburgh, right, last rush offense of the league, 16 carries, 52 yards, 1 touchdown. So I think going into the week, obviously now having to play Kansas City, you're probably not going to start like that again, right? You're not going to get a huge lead. Kansas City actually doesn't turn the ball over that much. So even to get one turnover off of Kansas City, I think is going to be difficult, right? Patrick Mahomes, there's just too many weapons there with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, right? You have Le'Veon Bell and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? You just have too many weapons, right? And even missing guys like McCall Hardman and Sammy Watkins, right? There's so many weapons there that I do think the blueprint for them to win, though, is going to be to run the football, right? Have Baker just manage the game, make the plays when they need to be made, right? Kind of make sure you're converting third downs and you're keeping the Chiefs off the field. And then it just comes into that rust versus rest, right? With Kansas City, they haven't really played a meaningful game in essentially 2 to 3 weeks, right? That Week 16 game, which they barely beat the Atlanta Falcons, it was 17-14, right? It was not really a great game from their offense, especially going up against an Atlanta Falcons defense that had been bad all year. So their offense really hasn't played great in about 3 or 4 weeks now, right? Whereas the entire team obviously didn't really need to win that last game of the year, so you rested everyone, and now you have the week off. So will they be slow to start out, right? If they're slow in that first quarter, right? And they were that last year too, right? As the 1 seed or the 2 seed last year. They were slow to start they were the 2 seed. They were slow that first opening couple possessions, right? I mean, the Texans were able to go up 24-0. Now, obviously, seemed like in a blink of an eye, they were able to retake the lead, but they did start off slow, which allowed the Houston Texans to score a couple quick scores early to get them in the big hole. I think if they are rusty to start the game and they do not score a possession or two in that first quarter, right, and they punt it the first 2 or 3 possessions, if Cleveland is able to drive down the field with all the momentum that they have from their last playoff victory and they're able to go up early, it's not over, right? The Kansas City Chiefs offense could score in the blink of an eye, but if you're Cleveland, you need to have a lead early in that first quarter because you need to be able to run the ball, put pressure on Patrick Mahomes, to where if you have a 10-point lead and they know, right, if Patrick Mahomes and that Kansas City offense knows that if they do not score, you're going to go on a 7, 8, 9 minute drive, whether you get a touchdown or a field goal, you're going to milk a bunch of that clock. Because then they know that they're not going to get 12, 13, 14 possessions in the ball game. They may get 8 or 9. And when you're shortening a team's possessions, it just makes every single play more crucial, let alone being a playoff game. So with that being said, I'm going to have to pick this game now. Obviously, I didn't have Cleveland advancing, so I'm going to have to actually pick this one for the first time. I do think that the rust will be a factor early in the game. I do think Cleveland might be able to jump ahead 10-0 or something like that. I guess we'll see, right? But I think it may take, because Kansas City, especially because they're a passing offense, usually you have to be in rhythm, right, and sync with your receivers. So a lot of times when teams have bye weeks, when they're a passing offense, it usually takes them a quarter or a possession to kind of get back into the rhythm. You're usually not clicking on all cylinders like you would be if you never had 2-3 weeks to kind of take off to rest. So I do think that would be a factor. Ultimately, I do have Kansas City winning. I'm going to pick the final score as being Kansas City 31, Cleveland 27. I do think it will be a very close ball game, though. I think Cleveland will be able to jump out to an early lead and kind of make it close the rest of the way. So now let me finish up with the Packers and Rams. So this one, I got it wrong. I did pick Seattle to win, even though I did talk about the Rams defense being number one. And I said, the way they had made Russell Wilson look in the two matchups, he looked pretty average. And if he was average this game, I thought that they could, definitely pull off the upset. Now, obviously, I had said that if Jared Goff was going to start, I would pick the Rams, but he didn't technically start. Wolford started and got hurt, and he came in, and they were able to win, and that defense really dominated. Let me just get into the numbers real quick for you guys. So let me go on the Rams offense real quick. So Jared Goff was 9 of 19, so not really great. 155 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. Wolford, 3 of 6, 29 yards before he got hurt and had to leave the game. But the running attack for the Rams, 28 carries for Akers, 131 yards and a touchdown. And as a team, they actually ran the ball 43 times total, right? So they knew, right? Sean McVay knew that if Jared Goff had to play or Wolford had to play, right, didn't matter. You're going to be limited in what you can do in the passing attack. And obviously, once Wolford goes out and Jared Goff is your starter, you're now starting a guy who has a broken right thumb. I did get it wrong in the previous video. I thought it was his non-throwing hand. It actually turned out it was his throwing hand. So that really affects, obviously, every throw you make, right? With a broken right thumb, I'm surprised he even was able to suit up and play. But Russell Wilson, look, at like below average numbers, 11 of 27, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick. He was sacked 5 times, and his quarterback rating was 17. Russell Wilson had a 17 quarterback rating. Like, that is pedestrian. Third downs, the Seattle Seahawks were 2 of 14. 2 of 14 on third down. That is not going to win you any football game, playoffs or not. Now, obviously, going into it, the Rams were 3 of 15 on third down. It's just their defense was so good. Like I had been saying in the video, they were first in total defense, first in passing yards allowed, right? First in points allowed. This defense is just on another level right now. And I think they are going to give Green Bay a lot of problems. Now, obviously, Aaron Donald got hurt. He did not re-enter the game, but they were up comfortably. So maybe at that point you don't want to put him in to, for the chance of him getting hurt. But it looks like he's going to play. If he plays and he's healthy and he's normal Aaron Donald, it is going to be a rough go for the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, without David Bakhtiari, you're already compromised on the offensive line. If you're the Rams, you've got to be putting Aaron Donald on that left side as much as you can, right? The right side of the defense, but the left side to go up against that left tackle just to see whoever they put there, if he can hold up with Aaron Donald, or What probably will happen is if you put Aaron Donald over there, they're going to have to double team or chip block, right? Have the running back chip Aaron Donald on the way to releasing, or maybe leave the tight end over there to block or chip before he runs a route, right? But if you're going to have to do all of that, that means all the other D linemen are now singled one-on-one with their offensive linemen. Or when you run blitzes, you can kind of run blitzes to the opposite side, knowing that they're going to have to slide the protection to the left because they're going to have to make sure that they stop Aaron Donald. And if they're going to slide the protection to the left, you bring some more extra guys to the right. Maybe you get one guy running free at Aaron Rodgers and you get a couple hits on him, kind of make him feel rattled. So we'll see how it works. Obviously, I did not really pick the Rams last week, but Green Bay, right, their offense has been so good this whole season. They actually were the number one offense in scoring. So I do think it's going to be a tough task for the Rams. Obviously, with Jalen Ramsey, he's going to get Davante Adams. That's going to be a great matchup to watch. With Green Bay, though, they don't have another like star weapon, right? Everyone else just gets open. Aaron Rodgers is able to find him with the football, but they don't have another big star weapon. So if Jalen is able to guard Davante Adams and really do a number on him, which again, we'll see. Jalen Ramsey, of course, is a top 5 corner, right? Davante Adams, top 5 receiver. So at that point, it's just going to be a great matchup. I think if Davante Adams obviously gets the better of him, it could be over early, right? Because if Davante Adams is having a big game, that means Green Bay is going to score a bunch of points, and I don't know if the Rams are going to be able to score a bunch of points because Green Bay's defense is much better than the Seahawks defense. And I think that could be a situation where the game gets kind of out of hand early. But if Jalen Ramsey is able to contain Davante Adams and you're forcing Aaron Rodgers to have to throw to other weapons, which again, he's more than capable of, they have plenty of weapons, but it does make the game more difficult when your number one wide receiver is not able to get open, not able to get separation, especially in single coverage, right? I think pretty much goes for any team. If you have a star wide receiver and that team's defense, the other opposing team's defense, has to double team them, even though the receiver maybe doesn't have big stats, but because he's double teamed all game, it opens up everything else for everyone. But if the Rams are able to just single cover him with Davante Adams and kind of keep him in check, it opens everything up for the Rams defense to be able to double other guys where they think Aaron Rodgers is going to go with the football. With that being said, obviously, keys to the game is definitely going to be the Rams are going to have to control the clock, run the ball, maybe hand it off another 43 times, try to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. Again, Rodgers, they did have to win week 17, right? So at least they're not in Kansas City's boat where they haven't played a meaningful game in 2 weeks. It's only been, just a one bye week for them. But if they do get off to a slow start, again, they are a passing offense. I mean, they do have a running game as well, but it's predicated on Aaron Rodgers and throwing the ball. If they get off to a slow start and the Rams are able to take a lead with that great defense, there could be some problems. But this one, I actually think I'm going to pick against the Rams again. I'm going to go with Green Bay. I do think that Davante Adams is such a special talent at wide receiver. I think that Jalen Ramsey will do a good job on him, but I think Davante Adams, they're going to put him in the slot a little bit. They're going to move him around, and we'll see if Jalen Ramsey travels with him. He usually travels with the best receivers, so it'll be an interesting matchup to watch. But I think Aaron Rodgers is so good that even with the other weapons, it makes it tough because if there's an inch of separation, Rodgers is going to put the ball right on the receiver's hands, and you just can't defend it when it's a throw like that. Also, I do think the Packers are just a better football team than Seattle. So I think it's going to be a different game, right? I don't think that you're going to be able to disrupt the Packers offense by just rushing for the entire game like the Rams were able to do with the Seahawks. They literally rushed for almost the entire game, and they were able to get 5 sacks and all the pressure, which means you're dropping 7 back in coverage, which gives you that extra guy or two, right, to defend the field. I don't think it's going to work out the same way. I also think that they have a better ground game. And then obviously where the biggest difference I think is going to be is the Packers defense is actually pretty good. They have some star players at some certain positions. And I think that if they force Jared Goff to have to make throws, again, he's having to make throws with a broken left thumb or broken right thumb. If they force him to have to make throws, if they can get a turnover or two and maybe, not have the Rams play the type of game that they want to play, which is running the ball, playing defense, right? If you force Jared Goff to have to throw the football, it might be, maybe a little disastrous, I guess. If you can get a turnover or two, and then maybe you can try to have a bigger lead, it's going to make it really tough on that Rams offense. So I'm going to pick the Green Bay Packers again. I do think this is going to be a very tight ball game, though. I do think the Rams defense is going to be able to hold Green Bay's offense somewhat in check. I'm going to go with a final score of 24-13. I just think that the Rams offense, it's going to be difficult to score, right? They did get a pick six in the game against the Seahawks. I think they're going to need a defensive score in this one to keep it close. But I'm going to go Green Bay 24-13. All right, guys, those are my predictions for this week's games. Make sure to get in the comment section. Let me know what team you think is going to win and why you think they're going to win. And also the teams that you picked to win in the first round, did they end up winning or did they lose? But that's it for this week's video, and obviously next week I'll have another video out based on the teams that do win, see which ones I get right. I mean, last week, if you give me the Rams again, I would have been 5-1. If you say, okay, I technically picked Seattle, which I did, and so I'll go with that, I was 4-2. I think a lot of people probably were picking the Steelers as well, so I think that was the shocker of the week. But we'll see how I do this week. I still have both my Super Bowl teams still alive, though, so I still have the Bucks and the Ravens, but obviously they're going up against both of the 2 seeds at this point, so going to be tough games for both of them, so we'll see how it works, and it's going to be some great games to watch. I'm excited to watch them, as always. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you guys so much, and make sure you like and subscribe.